In the news today, Amazon faces a mega lawsuit against 17 states and the FTC, the federal government, bringing all the guns. As they say, the online retail giant created a top secret algorithm which secretly extricated billions from the consumer.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Now, all this comes on the backdrop of a 4-year investigation into this company from the federal government, who claims that they are creating systems which not only bilk the consumer out of millions and millions of dollars, but also create more of a degree of challenge for those who are actually on the platform selling their products. In the summary of all this, they say that it creates an element of lack of competition. What? And that the government has said this is a monopoly and there's a whole bunch of players involved. You got Jeff Bezos, who's kind of sailing off in the sunset, moving back to Miami, Florida, I'm told. And you have the federal government who's mounting this attack, led by a chairperson who's 34 years old, who seems to be now heralded as this late-breaking newcomer from the Biden administration, who's now going on a charted path to right all wrongs in business. The story is absolutely fascinating. I have a few insights myself on how you can avoid losing a bunch of money to Amazon based on these particular algorithms, but also some theories as to why the interesting timing of the federal government dropping the hammer on Amazon right now. Why in 2023? Why did you investigate them from 2015 to 2019 and now just taking action? It's all suspicious. I'll give you my thoughts on all this, but as always, if you appreciate all things news and real estate, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, it'd help me a ton, but let's get into the story. So the story with the New York Post and nearly every outlet that I can find, maybe not the Washington Post though. Amazon made $1 billion with Project Nessie, the secret algorithm, the FTC lawsuit alleges. Now, to give you an idea, by the way, $1 billion in Amazon's world is not a whole lot of money, okay? Amazon's revenue that I could find last year was over $513 billion. But this particular lawsuit alleges that there was a series of strategies used in the online retailer's empire to boost its profits. Now, there was a lawsuit. Many of you will remember back in September, there were headlines about this idea of a monopoly and that there's time to bust up Amazon. And this particular lawsuit that has just dropped again was 172 pages. By the way, it's been filed by a total of 17 attorneys general that are also suing with the FTC if you're curious about them. So by the way, if you're curious at which states are involved in the lawsuit, those are Connecticut, Delaware, Maine, New Jersey, New Mexico, Nevada, New York. Looks to me a lot like a bunch of Democrat states. And again, I'm not saying anything about the nature of the political side of the spectrum on this, but that's just who it is. Now, Amazon spokesman Tim Doyle says Nessie was used to try and stop our price matching from resulting in unusual outcomes when prices became so low they were unsustainable. Now, the lawsuit itself, which I kind of filtered through a few pages of the accusations that were brought by the government, really kind of says that those that were trying to reduce prices on the platform were buried. So if you went on there and you actually had a product to advertise, and let's say you wanted to get your name out there as a retailer on Amazon, and you buried your price, Amazon buried your listing. Now, obviously, you know, Amazon brings results from your search just like Google does. So they obviously control how search results are displayed. And according to the government, Amazon buried the value. Now that's an interesting thing, right? Last I checked, you can actually still sort your results on Amazon based on lowest price first. Now there's obviously vast amounts of results that are gonna come up even when you do that. They may not be as relevant, but maybe something to consider. I will say, as I look at these types of things, when you hear about the reality, the FTC's complaint further accuses Amazon of seeking hidden information about operations for antitrust enforcers using Signal's messaging app, disappearing message features, and said the company destroyed communications from 2019 to 2022. I'm fascinated by how many technology companies do all kinds of things that we don't do as common Americans, like the technological companies. And I'm saying not just these guys, but there's tales online about Mark Zuckerberg, how he'll never sit in front of a computer with its actual camera lens not uncovered. So he will always put a covering, and obviously these are things that we may not think about in modern times, but in Amazon's instance, they left all the probably federally monitored tech platforms, which we obviously know. A lot of what's going on in the government now is they're saying, hey, government has too much view in our messaging that goes on in private. You can obviously see Amazon took matters in their own hands on that. The article goes on and says Amazon required sellers to use its Prime feature using logistics and delivery, even though many would prefer to use a cheaper service. They were hamstrung. So the idea of a monopoly, meaning that, you know, Amazon became stronger, people inside of their system had to use fulfillment that was required. And then also, get this, targeting Walmart. In the complaint, the FTC noted by Amazon does not allow other big online stores to sell. When asked why Amazon treats Walmart differently, Bezos said it's just different because of the scale and because of the competitive situation and so on. Now, the actual case itself says Amazon's illegal monopolistic strategy is paying off for Amazon, but it came at a great cost. They go further to detail exactly how sellers were harmed, how the consumer was harmed. And they said specifically from Mr. Bezos' quote, "On matters of vision, we are stubborn and relentless, but on details, we at Amazon are always flexible." Now, it's interesting that the article I'm reading in New York Post does not mention Lina Khan. So this particular individual you see a picture of right here, Lina Khan is now the firebrand, well-known person on the front of the FTC. Now look at this. The Wall Street Journal alone has done 63 pieces on this FTC chair, who is well known to go after companies. I think she's been in this particular chair for about 2 years now, and she has this idea. I was fascinated by seeing her name all over so many articles. Apparently, she just went after Microsoft and lost. So her goal is that she goes into the new level or next level of antitrust, academic, political movement. I found a paper that was cited from her on this idea called the New Brandis movement that was actually published by the World Economic Forum, talking about the new age of limiting business, the creation and the idea. Look at this, by the way, as an activist, okay? She's mentioned in this article, by the way, further down, support and opposition. Individuals have been described as being associated with the movement. Lina Khan, first name. Now, what does this movement stand for? It's an academic and political movement in the United States which argues excessively against centralized power being dangerous for economical, political, and social reasons. See, the idea is that there's no real reason for a business to be too big. So in this particular instance, you can see all of the headlines because Wall Street Journal, I went and looked, had done 63 editorials. I became fascinated particularly by how many times her name was leading on the articles that I would see in terms of her going after Amazon, particularly in this instance. Now, again, 34 years old. I think she's a Yale grad, and she goes after one after another. Look at Lina Khan has taken on the world's biggest tech companies and losing. So this is in July. They're talking about how she had a court loss against Microsoft, and then goes on and on, how right off the bat, she's already trying to make sure that there's competition in the world of artificial intelligence and in all these different areas. Now, be that as it may, I am super suspicious. A long time ago, I read a book called Extortion by Peter Schweitzer. I recommend you read it. He's got a couple books on Amazon I noticed today called How Politicians Extract Your Money, Buy Votes, and Line Their Own Pockets. Now, he goes into case by case how around election year, there is a reality that people that are running for office need money. Okay, so whenever there's a deep drop in some type of political contributions for a particular campaign. So if you go into this particular book, he cites in the back, for instance, the fact that Obama back in 2011 was losing campaign contributions, okay? So what happens is they take the federal government and they sick them onto Goldman Sachs, okay? So back at that day, there was a push where the DOJ creates an investigation against Goldman Sachs. Well, then in the same year, amongst a 6-month span of time, you have things like this. Goldman managing director gives $31,000 to the Democratic National Committee, $5,000 to Obama. 2 days before the report is released, Goldman senior director writes a $25,800 check to Democratic National Committee. Susan Scher, a banker of Goldman Sachs, contributes $5,000 to Obama and $5,000 to DNC. So like all these, pre-election, this is 2011, right? That year, the cycle was 2012 would be the next presidential election. Schweitzer points out there were headlines in that year where Obama's money's not flowing in. So then they create actions against specific companies, they shake them down, and then all of a sudden, all the people in the company start paying to cool off the dogs. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case here. Again, I'm just always suspicious. I know if you look at the optics, this is a Democratic push on Amazon, which again, Amazon is a major supplier for everything we have. Now, do I believe they've created algorithms and things of that nature to manage pricing and all those kinds of? Of course they do. In fact, what I really think is laughable is that we're talking about Project Nessie, some algorithm from 2019. I guarantee you what they have now would blow our minds. Like, the funny thing is, like, Bezos and the crew are probably over there really like, if they really knew what we had, like Alexa, Like, you want to talk about who's listening to who? Like, Alexa's everywhere. How does Alexa feel about Amazon's monopoly? I feel like asking Alexa that question today. The reality is you have government, you have big business. Amazon, they're arguably a monopoly, okay? It probably wouldn't be too hard to find a case for them pushing people out of business, for them overcharging, or for them controlling how prices are set. So again, I'm not taking a position on either side on this, but I am interested in the optics. I'm interested in what's happening. It'd be really wild if you see a bunch of campaign contributions roll in. I think there's a website called opensecrets.org, which actually tracks where the money starts walking in from to these politicians' pockets. So it'll be interesting to see how many Amazon payments go into the DNC in all of these areas as a result of things like this. Because, and by the way, don't get all hostile in the comments like Jared's against Democrats. I don't care. I don't care. Like, literally, I don't care about either party. So in all likelihood, there is plenty of this going on in the Republican history as well. Everybody's tribal now. Nobody wants to call a problem, okay? I'm not here to make a decision on which party's on the high end or which one's on the low end. I'm not here to do that. I'm just here to share the news. I'm just here to share the paradigm I look through when I see the news, particularly coming into an election year. That's it for now, folks. If you've watched this far, jump in the comments, say hello, give me a comment no matter what, a thumbs up. One of the best ways you can thank me for the content. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.